Hi, I'm Peter from Photo Cuisine, and this is my wife, Christy. She's the photo in Photo Cuisine. I'm the cuisine in Photo Cuisine. And we are at my parents' place in St. Petersburg, Florida, to celebrate their 44th wedding anniversary. And tonight, I will be cooking a peri-peri grouper with some sweet potato chips on the side. We have guests, Christy and Sherry, who will be watching and asking questions as we cook. Peri-peri is a traditional South African pepper introduced by the Portuguese during colonial days. But it can also refer to a type of dish. Peri-peri chicken is very common. It's like our barbecue chicken. They eat it all the time over there. So it refers to both the pepper and the cuisine. Now, the reason I chose this dish is because it matches two of our philosophies of Photo Cuisine, one of which is that recipes don't matter, the technique matters. The way you cook the food is what's going to make it refined and restaurant quality. There aren't very many ingredients in this dish, but the way that we're going to cook it is going to make the difference. The second philosophy we have is using classical techniques, but using international flavors and ingredients. If you are what you eat, then when you experience other cultures' foods and their flavors, then you can actually experience those other cultures without necessarily having to go there. This dish will be made in 3 pieces, the fish and the sauce and the chips, but we're going to start with the sauce first.
Do you normally start with the sauce?
It depends on the meal. For this, the chips and the fish aren't going to take nearly as long as the sauce, which is actually common. So yes, we're going to start with the sauce because we want it to reduce and get a tremendous amount of flavor, and that's going to take some time, so that's why we're going to start with the sauce. A French beurre blanc sauce is one of the classic sauces. It takes 3 very flavorful ingredients, stock, vinegar, and wine, and it reduces them down to virtually nothing, and shallots and some herbs. And what this does is it concentrates the flavor almost like too much. And then what we're going to do is add a stick of butter at the end. It sounds like a lot. But what it's going to end up doing is let that flavor come through into a sauce that's going to pour all over the fish, and it's going to be really tasty. The way I'm changing this, traditionally you would use a white wine vinegar in a French beurre blanc. But traditionally in South Africa, peri-peri dishes use cider vinegar, so I'm going to substitute with that. And I'm also adding peri-peri powder, which is the dried chili that's ground up into a powder. Okay, so the sauce is going to start with a chopped shallot in some oil. And if I had $1 for every shallot I've chopped. Shallots are similar to onions and actually a little bit similar to garlic, but they're very common in traditional French cuisine. They're very mild, but have a little sweetness to them too, and I use them instead of onions all the time. We're going to be straining the shallot out of the sauce, so even though we're chopping them now, they don't have to be perfect because we're just going to strain them back out again after they've added all their flavor. All right, we're also going to add some thyme to the sauce, but first of all, what I'm going to do is add a little bit of oil to a hot pan. What I want to do is give these shallots just a little bit of brown because that's just going to bring out more flavor. So, I don't really want to caramelize them. I just want to get them soft and maybe just a little bit of brown on them. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit because I want it to simmer. I don't want to boil the sauce down. I want it to simmer very gently to let all the flavor out without damaging any of it. Some of these are volatile chemicals and too much heat will kill them. So first, I'm adding the white wine. Next, the vinegar. And finally, chicken stock. This is homemade chicken stock. If you're using canned, get as low sodium as possible because we're reducing this down to a film, and this is any salt in there at all is going to be really noticeable. All right, I'm going to take a couple sprigs of thyme, and I'm going to sprinkle in some of the peri-peri powder. And it's getting actually a really nice color. I love this color. This peri-peri gives us this sunset color, especially after the butter is added. It's going to be this orange and this yellow. It's going to be really pretty. So this will reduce, and it's probably going to take about 20-25 minutes to do, so that's why we're going to move on to the fish at this point. Now, I have some fish pre-made into about 6-ounce portions. This is local Florida black grouper. This dish doesn't have to use grouper. Grouper is common because we're here locally, but any firm white fish, thick, like this will work. What I have here is regular unbleached flour with some cracked black pepper in it. I'm going to add some more peri-peri powder to that to link it to the sauce. You're going to have a little bit dusted on the fish, and that'll match the sauce later when it's cooked. And I'm going to add some kosher salt to that as well.
Isn't that just like flour dusted fish?
It is common in restaurants these days to have this technique, which is kind of why I'm showing it. But some people even call it a little bit cliche, but I don't agree with that because there's so much you can do with it. Yes, if you do flour and salt and pepper with the beurre blanc, you know, that dish has been around for 200 years and now everybody's doing it. It's kind of like seared tuna, even in steakhouses these days. They're just all over the menu. But I think there's a lot of potential for this. You can match this technique to different cuisines. Right now I'm doing it with South African because I'm using peri-peri powder. All right, what I'm going to do is sear this fish in a hot pan with oil, and then we're going to put it in a 400-degree oven. So first, we got to make sure the pan is really, really hot. A good way to check is to take a little bit of water and toss it in here. This water should be dancing on top. It makes little balls and dances on top, and that's the perfect temperature to start adding the oil. What I'm looking for is a shimmer. It tears a little bit on the side. You get those little tears coming down, and that's good. I saw this from Kakura on TV. You can put your fish, you hear that sizzle? Yeah. Now you can see it's non-stick. And what we're trying to do here is just give a little bit of color on the outside. We're not trying to cook the fish. We're just trying to give it a little bit of flavor by giving that browning. It doesn't seal in juices or anything like that. The only thing it does is add flavor. So we're going to sear a little bit on this side. Get a spatula here. And you can peek, it's okay. And then I'm going to flip it again. And you got all that nice browning on the outside. Get that smell too. You can smell the pepper in there a little bit. And once both sides are seared, you take the whole pan and stick it in a 400-degree oven. Now the rule of thumb is 1 inch, 10 minutes per inch of the fish. That's about an inch thick grouper, so in theory it should be 10 minutes. Fish are different. Some are more dense than others. Halibut is a lot more dense than cod. What I have here is a clean sweet potato, peeled and chopped into about the right size. Now I have a fried Eddie with some oil. Okay, so here's the first batch, and they're hot out of the fryer here. Now while it's still hot, what I want to do is I want to take my feta. I have a sheep's milk feta here, which is gives a little bit more tang. A lot of the feta in the States is made from cow's milk. But I want to put this right on top while it's warm because it's going to melt it just a little bit. Feta isn't going to melt like a cheddar or some other cheese, but it'll keep it warm and it'll make it taste really nice. All right, so it's been a little over 10 minutes. Looks like about 11 or 12 minutes. So I'm going to pull this pan out of the oven and do a test. And one of the things I've learned the hard way is you have to flag your pan. All right, this is 400 degrees now. And if it's not quite right and you move it, you brand your hand. I've learned that the hard way. So I'm testing the fish just to see if it flakes apart a little bit, and it does. It's still a little bit translucent in the middle. That's all right. That's perfect. So what I want to do is bring this fish off the heat a little bit, and it's going to finish cooking the next minute or two while we finish up the sauce and the chips. Our sauce is pretty much down to, it's what the French call a sec, but it really means that there's almost no liquid left in the pan. So all the water is gone out of it, but what you're left with is the flavor. The flavor is still all in here. To salvage this flavor, we're going to use butter. And what we want to do, this is the trickiest part out of the entire meal. It's not hard, it's just something you got to pay attention to here. We want to melt this butter, but if we keep it too high, the butter is going to break. It's going to separate into oil and the solids. If we keep it too low, the butter's not going to melt. What we want to do is keep it just about body temperature, maybe a little bit more. And what it's going to end up doing is sort of like a buffalo wing sauce. You end up using a lot of butter and cayenne sauce. It's going to give a silkiness and a smoothness to the sauce and pick up all that flavor and let it get carried into there until the entire stick is absorbed. All right, for the last couple pieces of butter, what I like to do is use a whisk and incorporate a little bit of air into it as I'm doing this. It makes it a little bit fluffier and smoother. Kind of like a more traditional butter sauce in French, like a Béarnaise or a Hollandaise. Last bit of butter is melted. It's all nice and silky and smooth, silky and smooth, the way I would like it. I'm going to take a strainer, and a bowl. And I'm going to take this whisk, and there's still a lot of flavor in these shallots. So just whisk it out, and we're going to get that flavor, last bit of flavor come in there. Okay, now to plate this, we're going to take the fish. It's finished resting off, cooking all the way through. We're going to take some of these chips and put them on the side. And we're going to take some of this sauce and drizzle it all over the fish. Yes, we used a stick of butter, but we're not using all the sauce. And there we go. All right, peri peri grouper with a side of sweet potato chips and feta. So I'm Peter, and this is Christy from Photo Cuisine, and go ahead and try.